Hello, and welcome to our Karma Healing program. Karma is a concept that I personally feel super intrigued about, and I'm actually excited about karma. And I have to admit that this sadly was not the case when I first started hearing about karma. The word karma felt frightening, perhaps, to me. I used to freak out. And the association I used to have with karma was one of punishment, first and foremost. Today, I see karma as an opportunity, and I am here to help you see karma as an opportunity as well. So, before we delve into our work on healing your karma, let's make sure that you and I are actually on the same page regarding what karma is, how we accumulate karma, and how we heal it as well. So, karma means action. That's just about it. It's as simple as that. Karma means action. Now, what most people freak out about is the law of karma. The law of karma states that for every action there is a reaction. So what does that mean? This means that whatever I do comes back to me. It's like a boomerang. So if I do good things come back to me. I experience a lot of luck, a lot of synchronicity, a lot of good fortune. But if I do bad things, and I'm gonna explain what that means later on. If I do bad things, then I'm gonna be suffering at some point later on, right? And of course, we're human, and it's human to make mistakes, it's human to err. So the fear sets in precisely because we cannot picture a life where we are not making mistakes, where we are completely in integrity at every point in time, right? Which means that if I'm out of integrity, I'm accumulating negative karma, right? That's why we begin to freak out when we think about the law of karma, namely that for every action, there is a reaction. Now, I want you to remember something. Perhaps you want to write it down. And the thing I want you to remember is this: yes, every action returns, but not to punish, to harmonize. If you want to write it down, I'm going to repeat this because it's far too important to miss. Every action returns, not to punish, however. Every action returns to harmonize. This is why I'm saying karma is an opportunity. It's not punishment. And we'll break it down a lot more in the course of our work. So, again, of course, there is positive karma and negative karma, meaning there is positive deeds, good actions, which are rewarded with positive experiences. But there's also negative actions, negative karma, negative deeds. All right. And these are the ones we need to heal. The accumulation of negative karma is a result of us being out of integrity, making mistakes, and not righting our wrongdoings. This is precisely what we're here to do. We're going to heal the negative karma, meaning we're going to heal every action you've accumulated over time that has been out of integrity in some way. So, before we get a little bit more into how we're going to do that, let's look at another distinction that I think is important to make in the beginning. There's two types of karma in terms of who's accumulating the karma. There's my personal karma, so that's my deeds, my actions. There's also family karma. Those are the actions of my ancestors. And interestingly, I'm having to deal with both types of karma, both my personal karma, but I'm also dealing to some extent with my family karma, perhaps even my partner's family karma, right? So before you start getting angry about your ancestors, the fact that they did some things that were not, you know, aligned, they were out of integrity. And now you're having to pay for their actions. Before you go into blame, just pause for a second, take a deep inhalation, and exhale. Okay? And hear this: we choose our families. You chose the family you wanted to reincarnate into. They didn't choose you. Why did you choose the family that you have today? Whether you like them or not, they're your family and they're your choice. Why did you choose them? Precisely because, or at least in part because, your personal karma is very similar to your family karma. They're very similar. There's a resonance there, and that's why you made the choice and you were born into the family that you have today. You made the choice. Your family didn't choose you. All right. And if you made the choice, I appreciate, of course, the fact that you don't remember making that choice. Your soul, though, remembers, right? If you made the choice, that's for a reason. And we are going to look at the reasons why you chose the parents that you have, the family that you have, and what you're here to learn from those choices. We're going to look in much more detail into those questions in the course of our work here. So, as you may have already realized, we're talking about karma spanning over multiple lifetimes, right? So we have to assume that the soul reincarnates many times. It comes back to earth many times, and it has some sort of experience and some sort of remembrance, some sort of memory of previous lifetimes. Of course, I consciously don't remember my past lives, right? And it's probably not, it's not productive to remember everything, right? But there's a certain line of, there's a certain frequency, there's a certain resonance, there's a certain train of development that spans across the many lifetimes of a soul. And karma is the unifying field, you might say, across, our multiple lifetimes. So you have to be comfortable with the idea that the soul reincarnates for you to be able to work on karma, because karma is not something that's sealed within a single lifetime. Okay? So, how do we incur negative karma? Remember, I said a minute ago that karma can be positive and negative, meaning we do good things, we accumulate positive karma, and we reap the benefit of it later on. But if we do bad things, meaning if we are out of integrity, then we accumulate negative karma. And of course, that's something we need to pay for or to neutralize, to heal later on, because if not, it accumulates a lot of opportunities for suffering. So what are the actions that lead to the accumulation of negative karma? That's the question we're going to look at right now. So some of those actions are very obvious. For instance, please don't kill anybody. That's bad for your karma, right? Likewise, do not tell lies to the extent possible because lies are bad for our karma. Keeping a secret, interestingly, is also bad for our karma. And this is something we're going to work with in a lot more detail later on. Just bear in mind that if you keep a secret and it's something that you're really ashamed of and no one in your family knows about it, that's probably bad for your personal karma, but also for your family karma, so for future generations. If you steal from people, and not only from people, right, from society in general, from nature, right, that's not good for your karma. This is obvious. I'm hoping it's obvious. Envy is also very bad for our karma. Being unfaithful, cheating on our partners, not good for our karma. Being abusive, so physically abusive, raping, for instance, but also emotionally abusive, gaslighting people, that's not good for our karma. When you disown a family member, especially a child, but it doesn't have to be a child, when you disown someone, you basically cut them off from the family. That's bad for the family karma. Keeping a grudge. Now we're on to the less obvious actions that lead to the accumulation of negative karma. So when we keep a grudge for a long time, when we feel resentful for a long time, when we are angry all the time, that's bad for my karma. If I am in this way, it's very bad for my karma. Likewise, judging people constantly, and I don't care what it is that you judge and how justified you feel in your judgment. Whatever it is that you judge is, well, actually, I'm not going to go into details about it right now. Just park that and bear in mind that judgment incurs negative karma. We have a whole lesson dedicated on judgment. So, we'll work with judgment in due course. Making fun of people, not good for our karma. Gossiping, not good for our karma. When you feel sorry for someone, and this may not be something that you think of as an action that accumulates negative karma, but when you feel sorry for someone, you're incurring negative karma. Again, this is something we're going to work with a lot more when the time is right. Feeling hurtful, pitiful, disappointed, wounded all the time. That's equivalent to holding a grudge in a way. Experiencing a lot of self-pity. That's not good for our karma. So what happens if we take all those actions, or probably not all of them, but what happens if we take some of these actions that I just listed, and we don't take care to resolve them later on? Meaning, you do some of the things that I listed, you obviously accumulate negative karma and you don't do anything to heal it. So, what's the result of the accumulation of negative karma over time? Well, the result is the following. One option is for you to suffer in this lifetime as a result of all the instances where you've been out of integrity. Okay? The more likely option, though, is for you to suffer in a future lifetime. And then the third option is for your children and grandchildren and probably great grandchildren to suffer as a result of your negative actions today. So that's in terms of family karma. Sometimes, our future generations pay for what we do today. Again, the element of choice there is not to be overlooked. Someone's going to choose to be born into your family to resolve your stuff in a way. But isn't it better for us to resolve our own stuff ourselves so that we don't burden our future generations with the karma that, you know, um, that we have incurred? It's, in my opinion, it's much better, but I don't know what you think about it. Now, let me explain why I said that it was much more likely for you to suffer in a future lifetime as a result of your negative actions today. This is something that's really important to understand. So, life, the universe, God, source, the unifying field, whatever term you use, whatever term you resonate with, all of those things, there's an element of generosity. So let's use the term the universe, right? The universe is super generous. What do I mean by that? The universe is giving us a long grace period so that we can right our wrong actions, so that we can revisit, review every instance where we've been out of integrity and do something about it. In other words, we get a long time to heal our karma before we begin to suffer the reaction of our actions, right? So perhaps you get this whole life to heal your karma. And if you do, great. Then in the next lifetime, I wouldn't say you have a clean slate, but you have a better start. So you're going to get a better start in life if you heal your karma today. But if you don't, so for instance, you come already with some accumulated negative karma from previous lifetimes, and you continue to incur more negative karma for yourself in this lifetime, you may not suffer the consequences from today's actions in this lifetime. But if you don't right your wrong actions, you're definitely going to suffer it in the next lifetime. What does it mean? Well, it means you're going to be born in a much sicker body, in a more dysfunctional family, maybe in a war zone, like less favorable conditions. That's what you're going to experience in the next lifetime. The good news is you're here, you're doing this work with me. You don't have to worry about this. All right. So, how do we know that we already have some negative karma to resolve? Obviously, as I already mentioned, we don't remember it mostly. I mean, some people remember it, but I don't remember what happened to me in past lives. How can I know whether I have negative karma to resolve? What are the signs, right? So, in general, the more difficult our life, the more karmic burden we have to resolve. So just look at your life. Is it easy? Is it difficult? Usually we have some areas where things are flowing more or less, and other areas where we experience difficulties. Wherever your difficulties are, that's what you need to heal to relieve yourself from your karmic burden. Also, the more difficult the life of your parents, even if your life is okay, there may be some family karma that if you don't resolve, your children will have to resolve. Again, they will choose to do that. But if you're telling me that you want your children to be happy and free spirited and unburdened, you might as well resolve some of your family karma. It's also going to be good for you, right? Now, specific signs of unresolved karma, those could be in terms of physical disease, especially if there is a disease that's mysterious or chronic, or like a chronic pattern in your family, right? That could be a sign of unresolved karma. Mental illness is often a sign, not always, but often a sign of unresolved karma as well. Alcoholism, or any other heavy dependence. That could be the accumulation of negative karma waiting to be healed. Lack of love, problems in relationships, lack of children or repeated miscarriages, early death. So if you're someone who lost a parent at a very young age, that can be a sign of negative karma that you need to heal. Financial problems, these are very often a sign of negative karma that we need to resolve. When you feel trapped in negative cycles, maybe it's a family pattern, or maybe it's just your personal pattern that you keep repeating over and over again, that too could be unresolved karma. Okay? Carrying extra weight on your body. Now, this is something that not many people think of as a sign of negative karma, as a sign of, karmic burden that needs to be resolved, but it can be. Okay? Physical malformations. So if you were born with, I don't know, four fingers, or, some kind of deformity on your body, that could be negative karma. Interestingly, there's one other sign of negative karma needing to be resolved, and that's something, I don't know, it's something that you wouldn't think of normally. If your karma is mostly resolved, you don't have to make any decisions in your life. You don't find yourself at crossroads. You're not stuck in limbo. You don't wonder which way to go. Basically, life is flowing and you're going with the flow. That's a sign of positive karma. However, if your life is such that you're often finding yourself stuck at crossroads, you're repeatedly having to make decisions in your life, you're in limbo, and you feel like, you're afraid of making a mistake, you're afraid of, making the wrong decision, that could be a sign that you have unresolved karma and you need to heal your karma. All right? Now, whose responsibility and whose ability is to resolve the negative karma, even if it feels like it's your family karma? All right? So if it's your family karma, who's responsible for resolving it? Well, in terms of responsibility, you know, anyone who's telling me that they've had enough of feeling miserable, whether we're talking about your love life or your health or your wealth, if you're telling me that you've had enough of feeling miserable, it's absolutely your responsibility to heal your karma. Also, if you're telling me you want to be happy and you want to take responsibility for your happiness, then you have to take responsibility for your karma as well, including family karma. Anyone who's telling me they want their children and grandchildren to be happy, well, there's a lot of karma work, karma healing work that can be done that goes a very long way towards your children and grandchildren's happiness. Now, are you going to be able to heal your karma? Because not everybody can do that. Are you going to be able to heal your karma? Well, that depends on how attached you are to being right. The more attached you are to being right, the less you're going to be able to heal your karma. Your ability to resolve your negative karma depends on how ready you are to give up being right. It also depends on how ready you are to give up your negative feelings. All right. So I'm going to be asking you, do you want to be happy or do you want to be right? I'm going to be repeating this question very often. And every time you hear that question, you have an opportunity to make a conscious choice. You can either hold on to your beliefs, You can hold on to your story. You can hold on to your assumptions. You can hold on to your negative feelings. You can hold on to your victim mentality. And if that's your choice, then there's no judgment. You're simply not ready to heal your karma. My guess, though, is that if you're here with me, you're more than ready to heal your karma. So you'll probably have no problem giving up your negative feelings, giving up any sort of trace of victimhood or victim mentality that there may still be residing somewhere inside of you, right? And you're going to choose happiness over righteousness. It's very important to understand that no matter how dysfunctional your family is, and no matter how unfortunate your circumstances are, you don't need anyone else to be happy. You don't need to live in a different country. You don't need for the government to change. You don't need for the exchange rate of some currencies to change. You don't need for your mother to be more loving. You don't need for your siblings to be more supportive. You don't need anything outside of you to be happy. You only need yourself to resolve your negative karma and to turn around your life circumstances. And this is good news because often we think, oh, if only it was sunnier, if only it didn't rain, if only, you know, the Green Party had more, I don't know, seats at the parliament or some other assumption, some other belief that we hold onto. And those are all wrong assumptions. I only need myself for my own happiness, and that's the good news. So, because we've been talking about resolving and healing karma, what's the best way to heal karma? Now we know why we need to heal it, right? And we know what's negative karma. So we know what we need to heal. What's the best way to do that, though? That's the $1 million question. And the answer might actually surprise you. The best way to resolve our negative karma is through resolving our karmic relationships. Resolving our karmic relationships or healing our karmic relationships is the best way for us to heal our negative karma. So, what are those karmic relationships? Well, we have karmic partnerships with our parents, first and foremost, with our grandparents, our children, our lovers, and our biggest enemies. So, think of the people that push your buttons the most. Think of the people that have hurt you the most. These are your karmic partners. And these are the relationships you need to resolve if you want to heal your karma. So, healing karma is a lot around healing relationships, right? So, that's what we are going to be doing. All right. We're going to be healing the relationships with your parents, with your lovers, etc., etc. I'm going to get into this a little bit later in this video. Before we get into that, what is a karmic relationship? What does it mean for me to be in a karmic partnership with somebody? Well, what it means is that if you and I are in a karmic partnership, it means that my soul and your soul entered into an agreement prior to this reincarnation. The two souls got together and they agreed upon certain things. The things that souls get into an agreement about are all about learning and teaching lessons. So, we're going to be talking a lot about the lessons that you need to learn. As a rule, because I already explained that karma spans across a long period of time, multiple lifetimes, multiple reincarnations, right? And usually we start off needing to learn a couple of lessons, and we have many opportunities to learn those lessons. But what happens if we don't? We die and we haven't learned without having learned our lessons. Well, in the next reincarnation, we get more opportunities, but the heat gets turned up. And now my life is a little bit more difficult, and my relationships are a little bit more difficult as well. Which is what? It's an opportunity for me to wake up and learn said lessons. If I do, fine. If I don't, my relationships in the next lifetime get more and more difficult. What I'm getting at here is the fact that the more you resist learning your lessons, the more difficult your lives get, and the more difficult your relationships get over the next, few lifetimes, right? So the longer you resist, the more you resist learning your lessons, the more you kick and scream, the more the more time you spend in victimhood, the more difficult your life and your relationships are gonna get. So, as a rule, look at your relationships. If you have one or two or five or 10 difficult relationships, that's a sign of unresolved karma, right? So, those relationships may be a source of stress, pain, trauma, frustration, disappointment. If you have relationships where you feel sorry for people, you pity people, maybe you feel sorry for your mother or for your father, I don't know. That's also a sign of negative karma. There are also positive karmic relationships. Not all relationships that are karmic are violent, stressful, painful, hurtful. Not all of them are, right? We have soulmates. You may have heard that term, right? And those relationships are okay, These are the kind of relationships that don't need healing, and we're not going to be working on those, right? Because they're a result of positive karma. We're only going to work on relationships that are stressful, that are painful, that are disappointing, because that's where your negative karma is imprinted. That's where your lessons, the lessons that you're resisting learning, are to be learned, right? So, um, talking about lessons, that's the main thing you need to get about karmic relationships. They are here to teach us lessons so we can grow, we can transform, we can evolve. So the karmic relationships are an opportunity for growth. No matter how painful they are, no matter how stressful they are, they're always an opportunity for transformation, for evolution, and for growth. That's why I keep telling you that I don't want you to be afraid of karma. Don't think of karma as something to be feared. Think of it as an opportunity for growth. Okay? All right? Now, when we learn the lessons, we transform our karmic relationships, and this is what wipes out the negative karma. This is why I'm saying that the best way to heal negative karma is through healing karmic relationships. Learn the lessons that those relationships are teaching you. This transforms the relationship, and your karma is healed. As a result, your life will take a quantum leap in a positive direction. But only if you do the work, of course. If you don't learn the lesson, I already told you what's going to happen. Next time, you're going to be born in a more dysfunctional family with more dysfunctional lovers around yourself. Life keeps giving us opportunities to learn. And until we do so, we keep suffering, right? So, what are the karmic relationships we're going to work on specifically? And what are the patterns that we're going to heal energetically so that you can have your karma healed? So, the first three types of relationships we're going to heal from the perspective of accumulated negative karma from past lives. So, we're going to work on the relationship with your father, the relationship with your mother, and then we're going to heal your love karma. So, your lovers, the karmic lovers that you have, that's the relationships we're going to heal. And by and large, your father is the way they are, your mother is the way, they are. Your lovers are the way they are because of your karma that you carry from past lives, right? So, healing your relationship with your father, with your mother, and with your lovers is going to heal your karma from past lives. In the last portion of our program, we're going to work on healing the negative karma you've accumulated right here, right now, in this lifetime. And I'm also going to give you tools so that you don't continue to accumulate negative karma in the future. And also tools for you to use when you are out of integrity in the future, and when you do some stupid things consciously or unconsciously, you hurt people or whatever. And then there's ways in which you can make this right. You can right your wrong actions straight away so you don't carry the burden with you into the next lifetime, and you don't burden your future generations with it. All right. So, with that said, I'm going to see you in the next video and we will continue our work from there. All right.